Welcome to the Hot Topix Podcast. This is your host, Cycle 4081, and I'm here with
Lamb Chop
and
Felonious Feather.
Felonious Feather, and we have our guest co-host, Tanisha, aka Easy T.
T-Easy.
T-Easy. I'll say too easy. T-Easy. So, we tonight we have our special guest. We have Senator Charles E. Sydnor III from Maryland's 44th District. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
So if you didn't know, we're actually here in Williamsburg, Virginia, and we have him coming in remote from Maryland, of course. So we're going to have easy questions tonight, very, very easy questions, and hopefully the audience will be able to get some information that they've been wanting to hear, especially this is the election season. So the first question we have is, in light of what's recently happened, is Joe Biden drops out of the race for president. How do you feel about that, and how do you think that's going to affect us?
And again, thank you for having me this evening. It's, you know what, I don't think any of us have I won't say any of us, but I haven't experienced this before. So how it's going to affect us, honestly, I'm not sure. I will say that just within the past 24 hours, there seems to be a lot of energy amongst Democrats, especially among Black women.
Oh, good.
I think just last night, from what I've read, she's raised close to $81 million.
Great.
In 24 hours.
Yes, in 24
Having that kind of energy going into a Democratic convention is, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Okay.
So we'll see. I think when you look at her credentials in comparison, I won't even compare some to Donald Trump because there's nothing to compare to. But I mean, I better not hear anything or anyone talking about how she's not qualified.
Right.
Is all I want to say.
Who do you think would be a good vice presidential pick for her?
You know what? I've had this conversation with a few friends, and some of the names that I've heard mentioned, I think make sense. Gretchen Whitmer up in Michigan makes sense. I've heard the name Mark Kelly, who's a senator out of Arizona.
Okay.
I've heard his name mentioned. Let's see.
No Gavin Newsom?
The governor of North Carolina, whose name is escaping me at the moment. I've even heard the governor of Pennsylvania. He may be a good choice. I think she's going to have to pick someone who is going to be able to bring some voters into the fold that may have some questions or reservations about voting for Kamala Harris.
Okay.
You can put it out there, voting for a Black female.
And look, one of the other things that I've noticed is Asian people are embracing her as well. So they're looking at her just as Black people are looking at her, and they're out raising some money for her as well. So that's really, I mean, so we've elected a Black president before. We certainly had a qualified person in 2016 running in Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is the United States going to be able to get over any types of sexism that certainly reared its head in the 2016 election?
Right.
Are people going to be able to pull the ballot for a woman. I won't have that problem, and many of us won't have that problem.
Right.
The question is, will she be able to get those votes in those
Swing
states
states.
to get enough electoral college votes? So
Right.
uh, I plan on doing whatever I can, and I know most of my colleagues here in Maryland, they're hyped and they're ready to do whatever they can to help her.
This is going to be my last question on this trending news. What can we do and our listeners do to help her, get over the hump, get there? What can we do? How can we help?
You know, it's interesting. Well, number one, you got to make certain family members are registered to vote. Number one, and two, that they actually
Do
go out
vote.
and make an educated vote. And I say that because there there are too many of us out there who, for whatever reason, they still want to say that there's no differences in party or no differences in candidates, in spite of what we have now seen come from 4 years of a Donald Trump's presidency.
Right.
Um, and you can't tell me that there's no difference. And what's happening is too many males who I think are being sucked into this machismo kind of thing that he's bringing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're totally ignoring um, what it is that he's done to this country.
Right.
I've had those conversations with people I mean, relatives of mine, male relatives who were considering voting for Trump, and you ask them the question, why would you vote for Trump? And it's been a handful of people who I've had this or done this with. I mean, most people, I think, if they have those relatives or those friends, they kind of cut them off. I don't think you do that. You have a conversation. So the question is why? And what I've gotten is uh, the lamentations about what the Democratic Party isn't doing,
Mm-hmm.
and black people being taken for granted and all this other stuff. All right, fine. Get that all off your chest. Now let me go back to my question. What is it that you expect Trump is going to do for you?
Right.
And I haven't gotten a real straight answer from them, because Trump does for Trump. Trump
Yep.
does not do for people.
Yeah.
Right.
Trump has been one of the most selfish political figures that I've seen in my lifetime.
And he's pretty much
He
admitted it with the whole thing with Elon Musk. He's giving me I don't know how much was it, $40 million. He's paying me every month, and we got to take care of guys like that.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
he's about himself, and in that role, you can't be that way.
Right.
You just can't. And I think people, it's funny because I can remember some of the criticisms that former President Obama and his wife took, whether it's dress or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
just silly things. All that stuff kind of falls by the wayside. And those same people justify the hatefulness that has come out from this man.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You remember the tan suit
and
scandal?
again, oh yeah, look, I can't wait to see a debate between the vice president and the former president. She's gonna eat him alive.
I think he's gonna
That's why
not
he's
do it.
that's why he's afraid. He doesn't want to debate her.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's not gonna do it.
One of the things they didn't do last
I don't
time,
think he's gonna do it either.
they didn't fact check him like the
Yeah.
last time they they
Yeah.
did the live on the spot fact checking. And I think if
It's yeah. So, but and I've had this conversation, and I would agree It's not. You're the candidate, so it was on Joe Biden to fact check him.
Hmm.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
it's not the moderators are there to kind of keep the debate going, but it was up to Biden to fact check him, and he did it every so often, but he didn't do it often enough because the man just kept lying.
right.
Um,
Right.
I mean, so
Yeah.
anyhow,
So one of the questions I had, this was actually in reference to January 6th, since we were talking about Donald Trump and the
hmm
all the legal wranglings that's been going on since then. Is there anything on the state level that can be done to prevent things like that from happening?
things like what?
Like
The
with
insurrection.
the insurrect, like for example, holding people accountable. Not allowing them
Oh, I
to
mean that's what our criminal laws are supposed to be for, to hold people accountable.
supposedly.
Um, but obviously, our Supreme Court doesn't believe that
Mm,
no one's above the law.
Right.
right.
Um,
Right.
and that's scary.
Very.
Because that's what makes us different. That's what makes a Republican democracy very different than a monarchy, than
A
or I should say
dictatorship.
a dictatorship more so.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Uh, where no one's above the law. We're supposed to be a nation of laws,
Right.
and I would say that it's it surprised me tremendously when the Supreme Court ruled in the way that it did. It surprised me even more when a judge down in Florida then attempted to dismiss this case against him.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it it is scary. I mean, it has had me rethink about my support of how federal judges are appointed. Maybe there should no longer be lifetime tenures to those kinds of courts. Maybe you don't rely on the political to impeach judges that are frankly they're not following the law.
Right.
Right. Right.
And that's the big thing. They did not get rid of the president when they had the opportunity, because they left it up to congressmen to be actually impartial, and that didn't
Right.
happen. Or the ones that did
And
didn't get
right.
reelected or
Right.
resigned.
It you left it to a political body, and the political body, rather than doing what many of us would have thought would have been the right thing, they did the political thing,
Right.
and they punted it to uh, the courts,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, we've had a judge who has been willing to try to find some legal way of letting him off the hook. Um, and what looked to me to be a very strong case. Um, so again, you begin wondering what one can do to strengthen your system to make certain that um, these kind of things aren't happening. There's nothing conservative about this Republican Party.
Mm.
Right. That's
There's
a
nothing
that's a
conservative
cover.
about destroying these systems.
Right.
Right.
No, absolutely. They there's nothing law and order about them at all.
Right.
And I think on the federal level, when things happen, you have to have that compromise to do certain things. That's where I think they're failing, because they're still political. And if you're relying on to the Republicans to change certain things, it's not going to happen, because you're not going to get the support you need unless you have like this blue wave,
Right.
in Congress.
And I don't want to paint them with some broad brush, because you've had a handful of them who are have been and are still calling them out and saying, "Look, this isn't conservative."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the former vice president's daughter, her name is escaping me
Oh, Cheney,
at the
Yeah,
moment.
Cheney's daughter.
Liz
Yes,
Cheney. Yeah.
correct,
The-
Liz Cheney.
and see what happened to her.
I would imagine that me and her probably don't align on a lot of things politically, but I will say she has to be one of the most courageous people
Yeah.
that I've seen and most principled people who calls it as she sees it.
Right.
Uh, and I mean, and that's admirable.
Yeah. I think I
Instead of
counted.
people like these Lindsey Grahams and others who just, I mean, I look at people like a Lindsey Graham or a Ted Cruz, even Marco Rubio, who this man just destroyed and lied about family members, called their spouses all kinds of names, and
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
they just act like little lapdogs.
Yep. Now you got to throw Nikki
I mean,
Haley
I
in that.
can't respect
Right.
that.
Right.
Yep. Throw Nikki Haley in it. So the thing with that was you
Oh,
got
oh, please don't throw her. I mean,
yeah.
Lord have mercy.
So we're gonna get into more, your area, the state part,
Yes.
and which you have a little bit more control over. So
No, so
Yes.
before we go into that, I'm from Nigeria originally, so I don't know what a senator of the United States does. Usually in my country, it's like three members of each state that go to represent each state, as a senator, and then they make laws and they impeach judges and other high executives. So I don't know if that is quite different from what they do over here. So I would like to know what it is that you do.
on the state level.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So here in the state of Maryland, we have uh, 47 state senators,
Okay.
uh, 47 districts across the state, and each of those districts have three delegates. So it's 141 delegates and 47 state senators. So I mean, we're part of the legislative branch of government here for the state. One of the things that distinguishes us from delegates is we have the power to vote for gubernatorial appointments.
Okay.
Uh, and to your point, that would be or could be someone who's going to be on the circuit court, the district court, as well as uh, our state supreme courts. So we introduce legislation, we vote on legislation. Um, we vote on. I mean, the budget is the big bill that we vote on, because under the Constitution, we always have to pass a balanced budget. So that's a big part of our responsibility. So in the state Senate, we all get to serve on a standing committee in the states. So in the state Senate, there's budget and taxation. There's my committee, judicial proceedings. There is EHE, which is the uh, education, environment, and health. I think I got that right. And
Education, environment,
there's
health.
finance.
Okay.
And those are your main committees that make up the Senate. Now there are a number of standing committees that one could serve on. Um, by way of example, I serve on um, a committee that deals with um, uh, and I'm sorry, I should let me E EHE is the old name. I forgot the name was changed to Education, Energy, and Environment. So it's
Okay.
EEE, triple E. I'm sorry. That's why I'm thinking EHE. That's what it was when I first got in. Uh, anyhow, so there are a variety of other committees. One of those committees that I serve on is the Joint Ethics Committee. So you have all these different things, and each committee has its own jurisdiction on the types of work that it does. So
So like each bill that comes through, it gets sent to a specific committee who specializes in that particular topic, and
correct,
then they
correct,
basically discuss it and vote for if it's favorable to go out to the main body for vote.
correct.
Okay.
So
So senators
so
are
if
like
you
on
have
the
a
state
bill that
level, not on the federal level.
No, we have federal senators and we have state
Senator.
senators. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were to
Right.
like go for another election, what would be the next rank up for you? Like if you wanted to
Move up.
move up, yeah.
That could be anything.
the move up, I
U.S.
well,
senator.
here in the United
Uh-huh.
States, here in the United States, there are three branches of government, and we're co-equal branches of government. So there's nothing to move up to. Um, I mean, if you wanted, I mean, many people they may leave one of their branches to go to a different branch. I've had people who have left the legislative branch to become judges. And we've certainly had people who left the legislative branch to run for an executive position, whether it be a county executive or whether it be a governor, or some have decided that they wanted to uh, work at the local level, and they've run for a county council seat rather than being a state legislator. Or they've run for a congressional seat to work on the federal level in their legislative branch. So it's I wouldn't look at it as some sort of hierarchy. It's just more of a thing of what is it that you have an interest in, and how where would you like to make an impact?
Okay.
Many people think about the federal system as, I guess, the system that everybody wants to be a part of, but many people they would prefer to work at the state and local level because uh, uh, some may say it's closer to the people. You're not representing as many people. Districts aren't as large, so um, that's a preference for many people.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Were there any major bills or incentives that did not pass during this session? If so, what are they, and why do you think they weren't successful?
Oh man, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of bills are usually introduced each year,
You said thousands.
and only
He said hundreds.
and only a handful of them may pass.
Okay.
Um, if I were to go, and I think they keep track of these kinds of numbers on the General Assembly's websites.
Okay.
So this last session, there were in the Senate 1,188 uh, Senate bills that were introduced, 383 legislative bond initiatives. Um, there were 1,526 House bills introduced,
Wow.
369 legislative bond initiatives. So, I mean, if you add those up, you're talking probably what, just about 2,600 bills,
That's a lot.
I don't think the average
and
person knows that.
and
I really don't think they do.
1,049 were passed.
Wow.
So the legislative
So
session is
there's
from what,
a lot.
January through April?
90 days that begins usually that second Wednesday in uh, January
Okay.
through generally it's like that second Monday in April.
Okay.
So not whatever that 90 days is, it, that's how many that's how it'll land.
So 90 days to to discuss
Thousands of yeah,
thousands of bills.
yeah. I really don't think the average
Yeah.
voter
Definitely not.
knows that. I definitely didn't know that.
And and with the legislation and the way that we do it in the state of Maryland, if a legislator introduces a bill by and there's a date certain, that bill must have a hearing.
Oh my
What do you mean?
god.
Uh,
Like they if they introduce a bill and they put a specific date on it?
so so by way of example, session, and I'm making up this date.
Okay.
Session begins, the General Assembly session begins January 10th. By February 1st, you have to have all your bills in if you want a hearing.
Oh, okay.
Anything that comes in after February 1st will go to this committee called the Rules Committee. And when it gets to the Rules Committee can decide whether or not to allow it to go to the committee that would generally have subject matter jurisdiction over that topic.
Okay.
You get it in before February 1st, rules plays no part in it. You will be guaranteed a hearing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So get all those votes in before February 1st.
Right.
You get
Oh,
all
the
well, you get
legislation,
you get
the
all those
bills.
bills in so
Yeah.
you can get a hearing. Now, whether or not the committee acts on your bill after a hearing
Mm-hmm.
is a different story. They don't have to, we don't have to, the committees don't have to act on anything
Okay.
except for the
Okay.
budget.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But then when you hear that, you can now imagine what's going on. So in the mornings is when you get onto the floor and we meet as a body to vote on legislation that's made it out of the committee.
All right.
From 1 o'clock on is when you have your bill hearings. So if bill hearings are beginning at 1 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, generally you are gonna be in the hearing rooms till, I mean, in our committee, it's usually 6 or 7, maybe 6, 7, 8 o'clock each evening.
Wow.
Sometimes it'll go to 9, 10, and it's gone to 11. I know when I was in the House of Delegates, we had one uh, day where our hearings went into, I think, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
I
Wow.
remember hearing about that. That's what let me know. I was like, nope, that's
Yeah,
not for me.
that was our gun day.
Mm,
And all the legislation about guns.
Yep, that's not for me. Couldn't do
So
that.
it can be taxing to have to sit and what many in the general public don't understand is while those bill hearings are going on, you may have to present a bill yourself, so you'll have to leave your committee in order to present your bills.
Oh,
Uh, Generally, for me, I try not to carry more than I try, and I haven't been successful. But usually, I try to get about 15 bills. Uh, but uh, I tend to carry closer to 20. And if you can get half of them passed, you're doing pretty well.
those are including co-sponsored bills.
I don't include co-sponsored
Oh wow.
bills. Because a co-sponsored bill is simply a bill that one of your colleagues has that you support, but without you being the primary sponsor, that's you don't do too much.
Okay, just
Um,
you just put your name on there as I
right.
right.
support this legislation.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
Correct.
gotcha.
Okay.
The work falls in the primary bills,
Ah,
I have a
or
question.
I should say the bills that with a primary sponsor.
okay.
What do you see as the most significant accomplishments of this legislative session?
What's your pride and joy
You know,
of the Senate?
it's yeah, no, it's always it's hard to figure out what is. There are many bills that I've been the primary sponsor of that I've appreciated. There's some that I believe should pass and don't pass. So um, it's hard to choose. Uh, I mean, this session there was one piece of legislation that we passed that stemmed from a case here in Baltimore County where a young uh, girl was sexually assaulted, and when and she ultimately, the state's attorney ultimately ended up pressing charges. Uh, but the I think the young lady did not initially didn't want to come forward because she didn't want a lot of publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So the state's attorney's office was able to keep her name out of certain documents up until the time when the charges had to be filed, and at that point, her name was out there. So we passed legislation that would provide a sense of privacy to minor victims
Mm.
uh, from the general public. Now,
Okay.
obviously, the defense, they have a right to know who's accusing them.
Right.
So they'll still have access to that juvenile's name, but there's no reason for the general public to know or to have that information just so readily available.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's important.
yeah. So I mean, and that legislation was initially introduced last year by Delegate Phillips, who's also in Baltimore, uh, in Scott Phillips,
Oh, okay.
Baltimore County.
District 10.
Yeah, and yep, correct. And it passed the House but didn't get out the Senate. And hearing the legislation when it ultimately ended up not passing, I told him I I wanted to help get it across the line in the Senate. And with him working in the House and me working over in the Senate, we were able to get it passed this session.
Oh, okay.
Great.
So it's so again, 1,049 bills that passed. There are many bills that don't get publicity that are still very impactful types of legislation. Um, so
How do you know what's gonna?
that's one I would say for this year.
How do you know? I guess what you guys get to vote on. Like if everybody present all these bills, how do you pick? Or does
That's
everything
the
get voted
chairman's
on?
call.
Okay.
That's the
Okay.
chair. That's the chairman's or the chairwoman's call.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's just like that. I can't
Yeah.
imagine having all that presented to me and trying to figure out what goes and what doesn't.
Yeah, so you have to know your chair people, know what kind of things that they're interested in and what they're not going to be interested in. And if they're not interested in it, you got to figure out how you're going to make them interested in it.
Okay. Okay.
So that's where the politics comes in.
Gotcha.
But potentially is you have to know how to work with people.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, and speaking of which, working with people, do you get much bipartisan support? Are you guys able to work together across the aisle, so to speak? Um,
Absolutely.
okay,
Oh,
so
that's
and
good.
that's good.
There's there's probably more that we agree on than more that we disagree on.
Oh, that's good to know.
Um, yeah, I mean, there'll be some legislation where you'll see a partisan divide,
Hmm.
uh, but many of the bills that get passed, I would love to actually see this. There are many bills that get passed unanimously,
Okay.
and yeah, and there's not the partisanship that you see. There have been times when I've seen bills die, but it wasn't because it was partisanship, because you had just as many Democrats and Republicans on one side as you had on the other side. So I mean,
Mm.
you've seen things like that.
Oh,
So yeah, I remember there was this one bill. I believe it was the a bill dealing with was it the legislation that dealt with being able to or forcing drivers who are in the left lane to move over if they were too slow or whatever.
oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay.
And
so wait a minute. Let's get this straight. You said drivers that's in the, you mean the right lane?
No, in the left lane that's driving too slow.
Oh, okay,
Move over.
right.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah.
right, forcing slow drivers into the right lane,
Yes.
Okay.
That would save a lot of
and
curse words.
penalizing them if they didn't.
Okay.
Oh.
And that
Okay.
bill, I think there were a number of people in Western Maryland who had wanted that legislation. Uh, and I remember I was in the House of Delegates at the time, and look, I think I voted against it. And 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 the bill failed because you had other Republicans who hated it, you had Democrats who loved it, and Democrats who didn't want it. So it failed, but it was not a partisan fail. It
Ah, okay.
was more of a what's your experience
Right.
in the districts that you
Mm.
live in.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Well,
Gotcha.
that would have saved a
I mean,
lot of
if you
people
live
some
on
curse
Eastern
words.
Maryland or maybe Western Maryland where you get two cars driving slow and you can't get through, you're probably a bit more frustrated than you are in these urban communities that have multi-lane highways.
Right.
Right.
Um, so everything is not partisan, and I mean that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the being in the Maryland General Assembly.
So would you
Now
say,
that's not to say that things can't get partisan, because you will have some votes where they're party line votes.
so would you say it's more regional than partisan?
Mm.
It
So
depends
like
on the
the,
legislation.
okay.
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 Yeah.
So looking
It
ahead,
always depends on the issue.
oh, okay. Looking ahead, what issues do you believe will be at the forefront for the next legislative session?
What,
I can tell you that for me, for the past few years, I've been working on legislation to bring a Voting Rights Act to the state of Maryland
okay.
because I see what they're doing at the federal level, uh,
Mm.
chopping away at the Federal Voting Rights Act. So if what the courts are doing and what they're trying to do what Republicans are trying to do at the federal level is send things back to the states, then I want to make certain that our states have good, strong, solid laws dealing with people's voting rights. Um, just a few years ago, when we did the redistricting maps here in Baltimore County, I ended up being a plaintiff who sued Baltimore County because of its redistricting maps.
Right.
I remember that.
Right.
And I had to rely on uh, the ACLU and NACP and these organizations to help supply me and some others with attorneys in order to sue.
Mm.
So the legislation that I had would empower the attorney general to move forward on cases where local governments were going beyond uh, where they should be going. So if there was anything that was unconstitutional or discriminatory, the attorney general will be able to step in and check these local governments. Unfortunately, that bill, like I said, it didn't pass, but it's a priority of mine.
Okay. So I had a question for you. You had you're a pretty young guy.
What's considered
Thank you.
young?
Young. You're under 40, right?
No,
You're not. Okay.
Wow.
Well, you're a young looking guy. So let me see. Can you share a little bit about your family background and
Brian,
upbringing?
I'm 50 years old.
Are you kidding me?
No, that's a joke.
Good black don't crack.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that. I thought
He's
you was in your.
what?
I thought you was maybe
She
like
said 50.
maybe 35, 36.
Brian, I have a daughter that's about to turn 20 next month.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
Wait a minute. I've seen your daughters. Your daughters don't look that old either.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Wait,
Yeah,
wait a minute. No,
yes.
sir. Let me tell you, because his daughters look like clones of him. So- but they were little. Has it been that long?
Apparently it
Look,
has.
the youngest turned 16
Oh, no
on
kidding.
Saturday.
Oh wow. I guess it has been that long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm
not
I'm an old
so
man.
you're a fairly older guy.
There you go. There you go.
I don't know. I thought you was in your 30s, like maybe 36. Wow. Okay. Well, scratch that. What? Now you can tell us about your family and upbringing.
Sure. No, I'm originally from Baltimore City. Grew up. Let's see. First 4 years of my life, it was off of a street called Midwood in Northeast. That was close to Morgan. That's where my father had went to college. But we moved to Southwest Baltimore City back in, I think it was 78, 79. I don't recall. Um, Went to s- uh, like I said, went to Poly.
Okay.
From there,
Ooh.
do we have somebody over there perpetrating?
I'm a poet,
Lord
so I
have
have got
mercy.
to talk. I'll talk about anybody who is not from Dunbar.
Oh my Lord, Brian, I'm gonna ignore her. See, I thought she was from City, Dunbar, whatever. Anyway,
Over East, that's right.
oh my goodness, oh my goodness. No, but seriously, I'm just joking. Uh, but in fact, I went to Johns Hopkins with a guy who actually I went with two guys who I think came out of Dunbar. So when I was at Hopkins, if you were from Baltimore City and you're on that campus and you went to a public school in the city, it was either Poly, Dunbar, or City or Western.
Right. Yep.
Um, and so uh, graduated from Hopkins. Thought I wanted to be a teacher, but while I was at Hopkins, realized that wasn't for me. So I had an interest in educational policy and went to UMBC, where made where I majored in policy with a concentration in educational policy. And I think my first year there, I was with a friend and saw something on the wall talking about a joint degree program or dual degree program at the University of Maryland School of Law. Applied and got into that school. So in 2000, I graduated from the law school and from UMBC Graduate School in May of 2000.
Nice.
Nice.
Clerked at the
Impressive.
Circuit Court for Baltimore City for 1 year, where we dealt with let's see, it was sex crimes. I think that was my first day in court because I remember dealing with a lot of statutory rape cases, or
Jeez.
Oh,
my
really?
judge dealing with them.
That's got to be hard.
Uh, it was out, and because you had many young men coming in saying, "Your Honor, she told me she was this age.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you listen to the stories, she probably did tell him that.
Right.
But the judge that I had said, I mean, the law doesn't provide me an opportunity to let you off because you say that she lied to you.
Right.
You did what you did.
Right.
You engaged in sexual acts with this girl who was underage. You're guilty.
Right.
You met her in the bar.
So I mean
Said you were
that's pretty
25.
it was
No,
eye
seriously.
opening.
This is a legit one. I remember a case like this where a guy met a woman, a child, teenager in a bar that you had to be 25 and older. And things happen, whatever, and then next he's standing in front of the judge. So I mean that's
Yeah,
not that
you look at
uncommon.
all that context and you assume that she's older than what she is because, like you said, 21 and over. What does 15-year-old be doing at 21 and over?
Right.
Right.
It happens, and and I mean I do remember one of the stories where I think the guy must have been he was a jerk to the girl, um, and did they did what they did, and he kind of dismissed her, and when she went home all early in the morning, the mother was like, "Where have you been?"
Right.
And then it all unfolded, and like you said, and he ends up before the judge.
Yeah. I've seen those cases before.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, and but that year, one of the more interesting cases was a case. I think it was called the Elmley Street Murders, where there was a family. I think it may have been 4 or 5 people who were killed over on Elmley Avenue in East Baltimore, in some, I think it was a drug dispute.
Mm.
Um, and I remember uh, the um, the defendants. They had these, and I didn't know these things existed, but they had these shock vests on them during the course of the trial. So I guess if they got out of hand, the bailiff could stun them.
Oh my
The the
God.
the defendant.
Yes,
Oh, okay. Never heard of that one.
he didn't.
That sounds cruel and
I,
unusual.
I don't know exactly what transpired that
Right.
yeah, I don't know what transpired. I wasn't a part of those, but I just remember.
Wow.
I'm like,
Yeah,
stop lying, zip.
so
You know what?
I don't think it worked like that.
Oh my
But
He's
gosh.
lying, zip, zip, zip.
It's always one.
oh
He's
Lord
he's
have mercy.
special.
But from that ended up working for a company, a charity that deals with affordable housing or provide the provisions of affordable housing. Um, and I've been there for 20 plus years. So it wasn't until like 2013 where I decided to run for office.
Okay.
It sounds like you've been in public service pretty much your whole career. How has your family supported your
Yeah.
political career?
Oh man, you can't do this without your family kind of taking on things that most people don't have to take on. So
Mm.
whether it be me going out to meetings while we're not in session or while we're in session, uh, somebody has to cook on those evenings. When you're not home or get children picked up and the like. So I mean, my wife has been a tremendous support in what I've done. Our parents, they've been supportive and helping with the girls when one of us were unable maybe to get them from school
Mm.
um, or get them to school. So I mean, it's been a familial effort uh, when it comes to even fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
I have my network of people, my family, they have their networks, and and people have been willing to ask their networks for money to help me with the campaign because running is not cheap.
Right.
Yeah, that's a
And
fact.
some people, I don't know if their idea is when you're raising money, they think it's going into your pockets, but the reality is that money is going into a campaign to help you get a message put out so
Mm-hmm.
that you can get elected.
So it sounds like you have a
So I mean,
village.
nobody should be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You better. If you want to do this, you cannot just depend on yourself. I mean,
Right.
you may be the one in front of the camera, but it's a whole lot of stuff that's happening that helps get you there.
Right. And your father's been
And
involved
I
with
and
you.
I know that.
Your father's been involved with you a lot, also, right? Because I've seen him
Oh
around.
my goodness.
Yeah.
On the campaign trail, he tells people I can sell my son better than he can sell himself. And
Well,
he's right because I don't like talking about myself.
Well, with all this hard work, how do you unwind and spend quality time with your family with a busy schedule?
You know, sometimes you you just have to sit down and turn on the television and then just enjoy watching a movie or some cartoons or something with them. Um, Sometimes we have little game nights and play Uno.
Mm.
That
crazy.
can get ugly
Um,
sometimes,
but
especially Uno
no,
and
it's like
Monopoly.
oh yeah. No, my father, he says you have everything that you need right there today. And
Mm.
he's right. My eldest, when she goes to a university, close to university, uh, but she's nearby. During the summer, she's here. Everyone's here, and I know in a few years that's not going to be the
Okay,
case.
so yeah.
Yeah.
But my daughters are here with me, wife, and we. I enjoy cooking,
Oh.
so that
Okay.
that that's 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 relaxing for me.
What's your best dish?
Ah, boy, I don't have one. Um, I mean, uh, I could take pasta in all sorts of directions. I mean, I like to go out on my back porch and pull some fresh basil and make a pesto and put it on some linguine
Okay.
or some shrimp, or even
Oh.
making an Alfredo sauce to put on the pasta. And I've been working on this is a cool thing. My district is a very diverse district. We have one of the largest mosques, I think, here in the state of Maryland.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
So
Mm-hmm.
eating Middle Eastern or Indian cuisine, I I've grown to enjoy this dish called buttered chicken
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
with some naan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Garlic naan.
I, oh, so guess what Charles learned how to do? I've learned how to make buttered chicken and naan.
Nice.
And I noticed from your
Uh,
social media, you're out in the community and actually supporting a lot of the businesses because I see you at the different restaurants and stuff like that.
yes,
Yeah, that's
I
good.
I figure I want to promote the district, so it's funny people could care less about what I post when it comes to political stuff. But if you post about food, people follow that.
Yeah.
And so I want people to come to District 44 and see how wonderful it is and see the wonderful restaurants that we have. So it's my indirect way of kind of promoting the district and promoting the good food that's right here. I mean, whether it's our good pizza or seafood restaurants or uh, we have some good Peruvian. We have a good Peruvian restaurant,
Oh
the
yeah.
Salsa
Salsa
Grill. I
grill.
mean,
Yeah.
Salsa. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they give you a
yeah.
lot of
Man,
food
oh my
too.
That's
goodness.
smart.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
that's very smart because you are right. People will follow food.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm always on the lookout. I mean, there's a restaurant down in Arbutus. I've done some hanging down there called Our Recipes. Really good food owned by or created by a black lady who used to be a teacher, I believe, at Arbutus Elementary, if I'm remembering correctly. And I mean, really good food, and well supported by the community down in Arbutus. Um, so yeah, I do. That's public service right there, Brian.
Hey, I
Yes,
can
it
appreciate
is.
that too.
I know.
I usually know them food spots.
Catonsville Gourmet, Franco's. I mean, man, the Beaumont. I mean, there's so many, especially along Frederick Road.
Yes.
Really good restaurants.
What's that? Duesenbergers?
Yes. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh,
I'm
man.
fat. I love that place.
Wait, that needs to
and
go on the list.
what's the other one? The not the Mission. It's called the big one, like right across from that. The Main Street Mission, something like that.
I don't know.
On
Yeah,
Frederick Road?
I'm
Yeah.
not certain.
the Mission. I forgot. I can't even remember the name of it. They got good food anyway down there on that Frederick Road spot.
You're gonna have to text me offline and let me know because I'm always in search of good food.
Oh, the State Fair.
And Faley's is supposed to be coming.
What is it?
I'll say it again.
The State Fair.
No, I said Faley's is supposed to be coming.
Faley's?
Fadley's, that's the seafood place.
Oh, I never heard of that one.
It's at Lexington Market.
Oh, is it good food?
Exactly.
I don't eat
The
seafood.
crab cake.
Is it down on Frederick Road?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
okay.
supposed to be coming, opening on Frederick Road.
Wow.
Sounds good.
Some good stuff.
We'll see.
You can get a
Yep.
crab cake. They're famous for their crab cakes and oysters.
Okay, like Papa's size crab cakes
I don't know.
or Coco's Pub size.
I don't
Oh, that's right. You don't
that.
eat seafood. I'm asking about
So I've
seafood.
heard.
Oh, that's funny. But
All right. In what ways has your family influenced your approach to public service and policy making?
If we're talking about how I grew up, I mean, my mother was almost, I think she was like a jack of all trades. I mean, this woman, she was a beautician with her license there, bus driver, um, esthetician. She did so many different things. My father, he was a parole and probation agent.
oh, that's right. That's
So
right.
yeah, so I mean, it's for me. I mean, it was always a thing about caring for your community, caring for others, and uh, but also following the rules. Um,
Even with your father being
and
parole and
and, and
probation, that would give you a lot of insight on stuff on the state level when it comes to
it does.
yeah.
And growing up, you never quite understood. So I look back now in retrospect and like, oh, that's what he was doing. I got it now. So yeah, given the work that I do on my committee, I talk to him all the time, and you realize because I mean he gets it. He worked with people who were convicted of committing some pretty bad crimes.
Right.
But he was always someone who believed that uh, you weren't what you did on your worst day. So I mean, you did something evil, you did something bad, but that's not necessarily who you are.
As a whole.
Correct.
Yeah, we
Correct.
found that out because we
Correct.
actually worked
Absolutely.
with
Yeah.
the hotspot / C-Safe /
Right.
Yes.
VPI.
Yes. And
Yeah,
he loved that. He thought that was one of the best programs that Parole and Probation had.
I did
I
too.
You
agree.
got to work
Yep.
along with law enforcement.
Yep.
And
Substance
obviously,
abuse.
Yep.
yeah. I mean, and the state didn't want them carrying guns or anything.
Yeah.
I guess for
Okay.
liability
Now,
purposes.
speaking of
So
which,
having a police officer there with
Yep.
is it was he thought it really helped, and you're being in the community. People were able to build relationships with you, and you began to understand what was going on in that community, and really did a good job within that community. He said one of the programs that made the most sense
right?
in the shucks, what is I about to say almost 40 some years that he was there for a long time.
Ooh, 40
Wow.
years. Phew.
Wow.
Almost 40 years, I think.
But and speaking of that, just you heard about the probation agent that was killed by his client.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was maybe a
Yeah.
month ago, I guess. Now, do you think they
That
have
was
anything coming down the line to rectify that? Speaking of, hotspot and CC and that little, collaborative effort
yeah.
that we had.
It was my understanding that the state they stopped the home visits, and I don't know how long that's going to continue, where you're not checking to make certain that people are where they say that they are. Um, I'm not certain what kind of things are going to change because, from what I understand, this is the first time that ever happened in the whole history of parole and probation that an agent was killed.
Oh wow.
Well, no, I think one time a woman was killed. I believe because I think we had talked
On
about that
duty?
before. Yeah.
I'd
Or
have to
or
check that.
maybe out in the neighbor. I don't want to verify that, but I recall
No
talking
worries.
about something along those lines. But that's long overdue because I'm sure it's not the first time that the agency has been informed of how dangerous it is to do home visits
By yourself.
by yourself.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
So
Yeah,
But
and
there-
that was something. I mean, that was something. It was interesting because I mean, that's something that he talks about now. Because when his area was generally Baltimore City, when they had the project, and he's talking about how he's going up on the elevator by himself, and you're going to visit your client, and your client probably has some of his or her friends waiting for you. So you had to be real cognizant of where you park so that you could get to your car in enough time because you weren't armed.
right.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy to me that they.
And you had to be very and he was always cognizant of how you speak to people because
Right.
you'd have some and he would say he had some colleagues who just they did not talk to some of their clients in the most respectful manner.
Right.
All right. You going to talk to me like I'm some dog, then well, who knows what's going to happen to you when you come to my territory.
Right.
So you just have to be cognizant that you have to treat people respectfully, regardless of their station in life.
I'm
People
sure we can
deserve to be
agree on
treated
that
like humans.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
goes along with I do community psychiatry, and I had a lot of clients to
Mm-hmm.
say, "Don't come to my house looking like a counselor," because you just don't know what
Mm-hmm.
you're coming up to. I've had clients that had raids, and it's just like you have to be aware, and you have to look a certain way, and you have to speak a certain way because you're a target,
Right.
and you're by yourself. You have
So-
no weapons. All I have is a
You're-
notebook.
Right.
You're right. So I mean, you come out and go into a community, you have on this bulletproof vest, and the guys they see it. I mean, okay, now everybody's antenna. Who is this?
Right. Right.
Is this a police officer? Who did what? Now they're
Right.
watching. So, I mean,
Everybody
there's
loves
many
police
things
officers.
that can bring attention to yourself that you don't want.
Oh, so
So yeah, so no,
senators-
he's been a wealth of knowledge.
No, I wanted to ask that a senator's job, is it like a 9 to 5 job, or is it like a 24-hour job? Or is it like, or do you get paid hourly?
The public
so I can
probably
apply?
believes that yeah, the public likely believes you should be on call 24/7.
Wow.
The job is they call it a part-time job,
It's part
but
time pay
it's not.
with full time hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a part. Right. I mean, and obviously I'm not going to sneeze at. I mean, we're paid about $53,000 a year.
Really?
But
Is it?
but when you think
That's-
about,
well,
oh yeah,
I pass.
So it's just-
That's
but
That's not a lot for
But
what you're responsible for and all the
Yeah.
hours and stuff that they demand from
correct,
you.
Right.
They want you at every
correct. The
public
state is
event.
probably getting a deal on us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Do they give like official cars and stuff like that? Like official cars,
No, we don't
official
get any of that. We get travel
benefits?
reimbursements and
Oh,
things during the 90-day session. And when you're out of session, you get a travel stipend so that you can go around your district to different events and things. But yeah, once you're out of that 90-day session where again, I'm getting in the office probably about 8:45, and I'm generally leaving between 7 and 8 each evening,
Wow.
except for Mondays. Mondays you go down at maybe around 3 o'clock and you leave at 9 or 10 o'clock because our sessions start at 8 o'clock on Mondays.
That is
But
crazy.
but yeah, once you're out of session, the community doesn't stop emailing,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you're at community events. The community expects to see you, which they should.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you're out there trying to get to as many meetings as you can. I will tell you, National Night Out is always a real busy evening because you have a plethora of organizations that all have events going on from generally 6 to 9 o'clock, and you're trying to hit them all, but you're
Right.
not ever going to do because it's too many community organizations having them at exactly the same time. So
And it's hot
you try
usually.
to get to those. Yeah, yes, it is.
Running from space spot to spot.
oh, are you are
Mhm.
you able to take another job?
Oh, yeah, that was a question I was like. How
Oh.
does that? I mean, with all the demands they put on you, how does that work with your regular job, your full time job?
I have a very, I've had very understanding supervisors.
Okay.
Okay.
So when session is in going on, I I have a laptop and I have a cell phone, and you're keeping up with your job as the days go on.
Wow.
And the reality is, during session, I tell the community, you're not going to see me because Friday, Saturday, and Sundays outside of going to church, I'm generally tied down to my computer trying to keep up with my my job that keeps my lights
Right.
So that was one of the
on.
things that I one of the things that I had issues with in government was, again, like you said, you have a full time job, you have family life, you have to be responsive to the community. Then you go into session and you have those long days with sessions reading those bills. I know you have help a little bit, but that's a lot to for one person to have to deal with. And I was always in favor of those positions, whether it be councilmen on that level,
Hmm.
state legislatures, to be full time jobs
Yeah.
because you're actually doing a
Yeah,
full time job
You
plus.
are. And I
yeah,
honestly don't
you
believe
better
that the public
have.
knows that.
Right.
I,
Yeah. They
I
don't.
really don't believe
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
public knows that. So I
Right.
appreciate you sharing that with us because I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That is a lot of work. There's a lot of people vying for your time and your attention. Yeah, it definitely should be a
Oh
full
yeah,
time
don't
job.
miss an email from somebody from your district because then they're
Right.
going to go and tell the community that they didn't respond to me.
Right. Like we don't
And
never
the
see
and the
them.
reality is, look, the reality is you're getting hundreds of emails a day,
Mm,
uh, and and you have to rely on staff members as well as yourself to try to read through and respond to these emails so that people know that somebody's there who's trying to help them.
right.
Right.
So we try to have a policy in my office, and I'm not against the policy, so I'm not saying we'll always hit the mark, but we try to respond to constituents. And by constituents, I mean not necessarily the greater Marylanders, but people who live in District 44. Within about 48 to 72 hours, there should be some response if you've sent us something via email.
Yeah, that's
That's a
challenging.
quick
Whether it's the
turnaround, though.
responses, we're
Yeah.
gonna look into it. We'll try. There should be some response.
So
We'll forward your email to Stacy.
last thing I
whatever.
wanted to say on that was, seeing as that's not a full time job as far as but they pay you. And back in the day, I know why. There were some people were farmers and stuff like that, and so they only had that little bit of time. And it about time to change that and
Right.
come up to the 19th century, and maybe the legislature should have full time pay and full time. Make that a full time job.
Right.
So at the congressional level, it's full time. There is a bill that just passed the county council, Baltimore County Council, that makes them full time.
Okay.
But I don't know if Marylanders would necessarily go for that.
They need it.
There's some Marylanders who are happy that you just get 90 days to do what you do, and then you're out of their hair.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to do something like maybe start a petition.
Yeah.
Because like Lamb Chop said, people don't know that. They don't know
They
that.
really don't. I guarantee you that a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: it really helps to bring in different perspectives when you have people who do other things.
Right.
So the job that I have informs the kind of stuff that I do in the General Assembly. And that's one of the benefits of having a citizens legislature. Rather than full-time elected officials who just are elected officials.
Right.
So it can be taxing work.
Right.
But it's good. It's good, decent work. I enjoy it.
Well, it definitely sounds like that this is a labor of love for you. And like I said before, that you put a lot of it sounds like you've had a lifetime of public service.
And I don't think you're stressed, because if you look that young,
I don't know. Look, some days are more stressful than others.
but it's not written on your face though. So
look. You got to put a smile on your face. There's a song, I think by. And I apologize if this is too old for some of you, but the Spinners had this song about make them laugh, clown. Don't let them see you cry or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, if you got to put on a show. The crowd, the audience don't care about how sad you are.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, he said, I done paid my dough. I want to see some show. Laugh, clown.
That is a fact. Well, we thank you so much for coming to Hot Topics and sharing all the information that you have with us and the listening public. Keep doing the wonderful job that you are doing, and thank you so much.
and thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you absolutely
always.
for your service.
And if I may say, if the public is interested, they can find me online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram it's Charles Sydnor 3D, CHARLES SYDNOR 3, the number 3D. That handle works on, like I said, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
The square thing.
So hit me up.
Well, you got to that before. That was my next thing, to give you all the information. So again, thank you.
Always gotta
so
take
much.
you guys gotta take your opportunities where you gotta seize them.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, and for the audience out there, you can also view this podcast on several, I think it's about 10 different podcast platforms, including www.hottopicspodcast.com, and you can email us at hottopicspodcast@gmail.com as well. And again, thanks for coming, and maybe we can meet again on our podcast later on down the line.